He's just a regular guy with a cool job that God loves for some reason. Welcome to the Steve Marston Show, a daily journey in learning how to live more like Jesus, conversations with those that God is working through, and dad jokes. It's the most unique show you'll hear today. Now, here's Steve.
All right, and away we go. Welcome into a brand new week. It is the Steve Marston Show, your daily afternoon dose of fun and faith. Happy to have you here, and we are all over the place. A couple of great radio stations, AM 630 The Word in San Antonio, also at Faith Talk 99.5 in Little Rock. We're streaming the video as we speak right now on YouTube, on X, on Instagram, on Facebook, on LinkedIn, even on Rumble. You can catch us all of those places. And on Mondays, we like to get interactive with you. So what we're going to ask you to do is to send us your Sunday morning takeaways, something that really kind of stood out to you from yesterday's service. And it doesn't have to be necessarily during the sermon. Maybe it was during your small group, or maybe it was during the conversation you had at lunch about the service. Whatever that really kind of spoke to you, we want to hear from you. So go ahead and get those into me. You can chat us up on any of the live streams that we're doing, or you can send me an email, steve@salemmedia.com. We get started with my Sunday morning takeaway. And this was something that I've talked about before on the program, but I think it bears repeating, and it came up yesterday, so it all ties together. And it is about the hard conversations. Sometimes you just have to have them, whether it is with your spouse or with your child, or especially if you are an employee, an employer situation. You got to have sometimes these uncomfortable and hard conversations, because if you don't, problems just continue to arise. It stays kind of bubbling underneath the surface, but if you don't deal with it, then all of a sudden it'll explode and it'll get really bad before it gets really good again. And I was reminded of that during a sermon that my pastor preached last night concerning Abraham and Sarah with their son Isaac, and the handmaid Hagar and her son Ishmael. Now, if you know your Bible, you pretty much know this story of how it played out. God promises Abraham that he is going to be the father of many nations. Only problem is Abraham is, number one, pretty old, and number two, doesn't have any kids. So it's like, how is this going to work? And so time passes by and still no son, and more time passes by, still no heir. And Sarah, his wife, who again is advanced in age, says, hey, well, here's what we'll do. I've got a handmaid. You can spend the night with her. We'll raise up that child to be the heir of what God's promised. Here's the problem with that. God didn't direct them to do it. They got ahead of God in the plan, which is a whole nother sermon in itself when you really think about it. You know, we know things to do, and sometimes we'll jump ahead of what God's got planned instead of hanging back and waiting on him, because that's always the hardest part, right? Tom Petty told us that, right? The waiting is the hardest part. So Sarah gives her handmaid to Abraham. They have this baby, Ishmael. And look, Abraham loved Ishmael. And you read through the accounts of this, and he was someone that, you know, he was his only son at the time. But God says, wait a minute, this is not the way I have it planned. Because God deals in the miraculous. God likes to do things where people go, wait a minute, how in the world did that happen? You two couldn't have done this on your own. That's how God works. So God was waiting for just the right time for a well advanced in age Abraham and Sarah to have a baby the natural way. And everybody would look at him and go, I'm sorry, what? What happened here? And they could point it back to God, you see? But they got ahead. And God did make a promise that Abraham's descendant would be a great nation. So Ishmael is born. Then about 13 or so years later, Isaac is born. And God said, this child from Abraham and Sarah is the promised child. This is going to be the heir and the start of a lineage that is going to bless the world. So now you might imagine there's a little bit of strife, there's a little bit of conflict in the Abraham household. Abraham and his wife and their son, and then you've got Abraham's, well, let's call her second wife for lack of a better term, and Abraham's other son. And they're both not coexisting very well. Again, it's a 13-year-old and a 3-year-old or so, or 16 and 13, I guess, you know, when all of this finally takes place. And Abraham and Sarah have this argument, and Sarah says, you've got to send them away. You've just got to get them out. And Abraham is torn because, yes, he knows Sarah's right, that Isaac is the promised descendant, but Ishmael is still his son. He's been around Ishmael for 13 years. And same thing with his wife, or his secondary wife, Hagar. So he's very upset about it, very torn. But he knows that the friction can't last. He knows that they got out of their lane when they got ahead of God. And he knows that they've got to get back on the right track. So the hard conversation has to happen. And God assures Abraham, said, look, I made a promise to you. Don't worry. I'm going to take care of Ishmael and Hagar. And matter of fact, not only am I going to take care of him, I'm going to make a great nation out of him, just like I'm going to out of Isaac. And those two factions really are what you see even today in the Middle East. Ishmael is the father of all the Arab nations. Isaac's the father of the Jewish people. And we've had conflict ever since. But Abraham, even though he messed up in the first place by listening to Sarah and taking her advice and having a plan to kind of jumpstart God's plan, it all blew up in his face. But he was willing to say, okay, let's rectify this. Let's get it back right. You have to have the hard conversation sometimes. And when you look at that from 2026 eyes, that means don't be afraid of the confrontation. Because look, I'll be honest with you, I'm the last guy who wants confrontation. I really am. I will go around my elbow to get to my wrist to avoid confrontation. But you can't always do that. You have to make the situation better. And sometimes that means talking to someone and laying it out on the table, regardless of hurt feelings, regardless of how they're going to take it. You've got to do the right thing. And I'm saying this as much to myself as I am to you. If you know a situation is festering and you know it's bubbling there, it's never going to go away. It's never just going to resolve itself. You're going to have the hard conversation. And don't be afraid. Take it to God, just like Abraham did. God will give you the reassurance, but you've got to take the step. You've got to do it. That's today's opening statement. We'd love to hear from you about what your Sunday morning takeaway was. You can send us an email or jump online and let us know. More of the Steve Marston Show coming up. Don't go anywhere. Oh, hey, we're back. Hey, I guess it's my turn to talk. Welcome in as we roll on here on this Monday. It is great to have you here. The weather has been just phenomenal. This, to me, is the best time of year when we get out of the winter cold and we start to warm up a little bit. It's not miserable hot yet. The humidity is still, almost nil. And it's just beautiful. Springtime is just the best. I'm so thankful that we're here. And I'm thankful that you have joined us today, wherever you are, and especially those of you listening on the podcast on your own terms and on time. Thank you for that. Literally all over the world. It just blows my mind when I look at the analytics and I see the places that are listening to this program. So wherever in the world you are, thank you for making us a part of your day, and we really do appreciate you. Sunday morning takeaways is how we get interactive with you on a Monday. We go back in time and relive what stood out to you from your, or maybe it was something in your small group, or maybe it was just a conversation with one of your family members or friends around lunch about the sermon. Whatever stood out to you that you go, oh, wow, yeah, that's good. I needed that. That's what we want to hear about. And we start with, let's see, this is from Eric. Eric said, the best thing about the sermon today was seeing a true man of God with a heart for God get up and preach the word of God from the Bible. All right, now I know that may sound a little trite, but really, when you get down to it, there's not a whole lot of these types left that are preachers of the word and not watering it down, not trying to do things to find a crowd and to keep people coming back. I mean, a lot of times finding a true pastor like that is tough. It's getting harder and harder. So be thankful that that's the type pastor that you have. So I appreciate you checking in, Eric. Let's see. Terry says, having patience and waiting on God for an answer. See, that kind of ties back to what I was saying with the whole Abraham and Sarah thing. Sometimes we know what we've got to do and we've got a plan and course on the radar, but sometimes it's best for us just to wait on God, for him to open doors, for him to maneuver things around. I'll give you a perfect example. Years ago, I was working at a classic rock station and desperately wanted to get into Christian radio. And I tried sending out what we call air checks, just samples of my shows, and zero. I mean, I would get some responses from time to time, but then pretty soon that just dried up. And I just kept feeling like I'm beating my head against the wall, because I was like, God, I'm willing to move wherever you want me to move, and take my family with me and the whole thing. And we are committed to doing this, and we just need you to open a door. Well, again, your host gets impatient and starts trying to jump out in front and kind of get things kind of kick-started for God. Because, after all, he's busy. He's got a lot of things on his mind. And nothing worked. And then literally out of the blue, I sat down at my computer at work one day, and I saw I had an email from the vice president of the company that these radio stations are owned by, saying, hey, not only do we want to talk to you about coming to work for us, but we want you to have a hand in running the place. Completely and totally a God thing. I had no idea who this person was, had no idea how this person got my name or contact information. It just poof, it was there. And you say that things just don't happen like that. I used to think that too, but we've got to just learn to be patient and to wait on what God has in store for us, because he does have our best in mind. Let's see who else. Marie checked in. Marie said we had some problems at our sanctuary with all of the band and being able to have all the electronics in full I guess performance, you might say. She said it was kind of old school. We just had piano and voices singing. She said it was so different than what we were used to. Well, that's great. Yeah, sometimes kind of stripping it down, kind of going, you know, unplugged. I like that. That's good. Let's see. Dana also must have heard a sermon on patience because she said patience and waiting on God because it's something that I need more than anything else at this time in my life. Well, there you go. Thank you, Dana. Let's see. Cindy checked in, and Cindy also talked about how when you hear the truth being preached, you know that it's the word of God because conviction happens. Conviction leads to change, and change honors God. I love that. That is so true, Cindy, because that's exactly the way it's supposed to work. You know, if you were a coach, that's how you would diagram it on the board. You know, here's how we want this to work. You hear because the word of God brings forth conviction. I mean, it's going to show you how and what areas you're lacking in being close to God. Then that conviction should bring about change. And then that's God honoring. Yeah, good stuff. I love that. Thank you, everybody, for checking in with your Sunday morning takeaways. We'll be getting to more of those next week. So we do it every Monday here to get the show underway. When we come back, we're going to be joined by Emily Chow. She's from Focus on the Family, and we're going to be talking about something that's, I think, really needed, and that's raising tech-savvy kids. Now, I know the first thing you're going to think is, well, wait a minute. I'm not tech savvy. How in the world am I going to raise my kids to be that way? Well, that's why Emily is going to be here. We're going to be talking to her about some of the things that Focus has as resources for you as well. Focus on the Family, one of our great partners. They've been with both of these radio stations since day one, and we are so thankful to bring them on and have them a part of our families here on Faith Talk and on the Word. So stay with us. Steve Marston Show comes back after this. All right, we are back. Thank you for joining us here on the Steve Marston Show. And it's a pleasure to welcome in Emily from Focus on the Family. And I want to bring her in because I want to make sure I get your last name right, Emily. It's Emily Chow. That's how you pronounce it?
That's how it's pronounced. Yep.
Excellent. Okay, because I was given that information. I'm like, I hope they're not punking me on this because it
No.
doesn't look like that. There's no C-H-O or W in your name, but it's Chow.
Well, there is a no. It's the last letter in name.
There you go. There you go.
Yep.
Okay, well, good.
No,
I'm glad. I'm glad you're here. Thank you for making some time to be with us. Focus on the Family is such a wonderful partner, and we enjoy everything that they do. And the cool part about it is, yes, they're focused on, family and parenting, but they have such ripple effects that just carry out into so many areas of life. And this is really an interesting one because I know how hard it is for parents when they look at their kids and they see their heads down all the time on their phones. And what are they watching? What are they doing? They want to kind of walk that tightrope as far as, well, I want to be involved, but I don't want to be like a helicopter parent. So
Yeah.
we've decided to bring you on, Emily, to talk about how to raise some tech savvy kids. Now, what would you say is like one of the most important things?
Communication. So I'm part of Plugged In, which is Focus on the Families. We're the program where we do all the entertainment reviews. We talk about technology, and the number one thing that we always bring up at Plugged In is communication with your kids. It's the only way you survive.
Absolutely.
You as parents survive raising them.
Adam Holtz is on every week with us to go over all the new
Yes.
movies and TV shows and stuff. So yes, we're very familiar with Plugged In. So let's talk a little bit about how you do. What's the best way for communication to go? Because I would imagine it's hard with kids sometimes when you feel like you're trying to communicate with them and it's only going in one ear and out the other.
Yeah. It is hard. I think what makes it so hard, you were talking about how, your kids are looking at their screens in order to communicate with them, the screen. And that's, the first challenge that you have to, conquer. And one of the things that I think we would suggest is creating phone-free zones and phone-free times within your house.
Ooh.
So, if you're all sitting down to have dinner, okay, no phones at the dinner table. We're going to sit down. We're going to look each other in the eye. We're going to eat our food. And maybe the communication doesn't happen every single time you eat a meal, but if you're looking at a screen, it's definitely not going to happen, So at least if you remove the screen, there's an opportunity to have.
That's so true.
And then,
yeah. Oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
I was going to say,
I was just going to say,
that's so true, because when we have that time around the table, and if we have that as a tech-free zone, it will spark conversation. It just has to, because at some point, everybody's just going to start talking. And believe it or not, it's going to be fun.
I mean, I remember growing up, if we were watching TV while we were eating dinner, yeah, we weren't talking, but if we were sitting in our kitchen where there wasn't a TV, we didn't talk necessarily every single time that we had a meal together, but when we did, we had great conversations, because there was nothing there to distract us, nothing to distract us as kids, nothing to distract my parents as the adults in the room.
Yeah. Emily Chow is our guest. She is from Focus on the Family, and we're talking about raising tech-savvy kids. Now, she knows of what she speaks because she and her family, you quit all social media. Do I have that right?
Just me.
Just you. Okay. Okay.
Yeah. No, the rest of my family is still very much involved in social media, but about, I think it was 5-ish years ago, I quit all social media. I was just done with it. I realized that the first thing I was doing in the morning was pulling up my phone and getting on Instagram, and it would be an hour before I would actually get out of bed. And it didn't make me feel good. It didn't, I told myself, oh, I just want to catch up on what I've missed. I wasn't missing anything. I was just doom scrolling. That's the term that they use for it nowadays. Most of the people
Doom
who I
scrolling.
was, yeah, doom scrolling. That's when you're just scrolling through media. You're not really, a lot of people think that a lot of people will associate doom scrolling with negative mental health effects like depression and anxiety, and it certainly can be that. But I think doom scrolling is broader than that. I think that if you're just scrolling through your phone and you're not even really, it's not intentional. Like you're
Mhm.
not going to look to answer a text message. You're not going to look and see what your sister posted about her kids in another state. You're literally just scrolling for the sake of scrolling and letting the algorithm guide you. I think that that encompasses doom scrolling as well.
Wow. Okay. I'll be just transparent here. That's what I do. It's my time
I
sometimes
know.
just to veg out. I don't want to have to think. I've thought all day. I've had to solve problems all day. So I get on my phone and I just mindlessly scroll. I'm doom scrolling.
Yep.
Wow. Okay.
Yep. And that's what I used to do. And I realized I wasn't getting anything beneficial from it. I told myself, like you said, I was just vegging out. I just didn't want to think. I just wanted to consume. It's like I wasn't getting anything in return. All it was doing was sucking up all of my time. And, at least so I quit social media. And it took me a while to get used to it because there's an instinctual fetch for your phone when you get bored. And you have to train your brain not to do that. Like, so when you quit social media, you almost do have to completely delete the apps and delete your accounts so that you won't be tempted to just, you know, restart the app or something like that. But yeah, like once you train your brain to do that though, when you get bored, you remember how to find other sources of entertainment. So maybe you do turn on the TV, but it'll be intentional because you'll say, "What do I want to actually watch?" And you'll pick a channel or you'll pick a streaming site and you'll intentionally consume your entertainment instead of mindlessly consuming it. Or,
That's so good.
one of the things I do, when I get really really bored, I I actually kind of get creative and I'll sometimes I'll get on YouTube and like a tutorial for how to draw this or how to knit that, and then I just start following along with the video. Or there's so many different things that you can do when you're not on social media.
Boy, that's such good stuff. You're so right about that. Now, how long? Just I know it's been a while, but before you just realized, hey, I haven't picked up my phone to look at social media in how long? What was that kind of that turning point? How long did it take?
More than a month. I think it was a
Okay.
month before I think it was before it started to kind of siphon off and it wasn't as strong of an urge. But I think it was maybe a full year before I could actually sit there and be like, wow, I haven't even thought about social media. So
That's so
it could
good.
take anywhere from a
That's
month
so
to a
good.
year.
Well, but you know what? That's progress, and that kind of tracks with creating good habits and everything we always see in those research studies. Emily Chow is our guest here from Focus on the Family. Let's get back to the topic of talking about raising tech savvy kids. It's probably not going to be something where the kids are going to drop all of social media. You're probably not going to be able to do that. But what are some of the different things that you can do at different age levels to limit the impact and limit the time on the screen?
Well, I already mentioned the phone free zones and the free times. Another thing you can do as a parent, especially when your kids are little, you want to use any available parental controls, child's
Oh, yeah.
devices. So that could be screen time limits, that can be setting it up so that they can't download apps off the App Store without permission from you. There's a lot of different options out there. It just depends on the device that your child has access to. That's a big one, especially when they're little, because it establishes that it establishes the idea of boundaries for them so that when they get older and they know how to circumvent those parental controls, they understand that boundaries are a good thing. They're to protect them, not to police them.
That's such a big key for kids to understand that, yeah, they're guardrails. They're not rules where you're to take the joy out of life. They're there to help. That's so good. Emily Chow is our guest from Focus on the Family. Now, we talked about doom scrolling a little bit ago. That was something new to me. Here's another term: digital literacy. What is that?
So that would be the next step that comes after setting up those parental controls. You want to start teaching your kids digital literacy, and that is defined as the knowledge, skills, and attitudes that allow people to be both safe and empowered in an increasingly digital world. And so, yeah, with digital literacy, you do not have to be a super tech savvy parent to teach your child to be a tech savvy person.
Well, that's what I was going to say.
Literacy is about.
Well, yeah, that's what I was going to say, because the old joke is, well, I can't figure out the time on my cell phone, so I'm going to give it to a 6-year-old, let him fix it for me. How do we bridge that gap?
So this is where it comes back to the communication thing that I mentioned at the beginning of this conversation. When you are having conversations with your children about how they interact with technology, how they use it, how much they use it, that is what gets them thinking about how they're using their screens and teaches them digital literacy. And it makes it, when you start, you start small on the topic, like, what are you watching? Why do you like that video? Why do you think it's funny? Stuff. And then when something comes up that I'm comfortable with, like, if you've set up this communication pattern where you talk to they're using their phones for, who they're talking to, what they're watching, then when they hit a problem, sit there and try to figure it out on their own or hide it from you, or at least they'll be less likely to do this. I can't promise that they won't do it, but it'll be easier for them to come to mom and dad and say, hey, I'm having a problem. This guy is bullying me. This girl is spreading rumors about me. Whatever the problem is, it'll be easier for them to come to you and communicate with you if you've already set up that pattern of communication.
Oh, I think that's such a good point, because that's because ultimately that's what we as parents want with our kids. We want our kids to come and ask us and use us as a resource and not hide things from us. But you've got to be proactive. You're so right. You've got to be the one to open the lines of communication, because more than likely the kids aren't going to do that. It's your job as the parent, right?
Yeah. And if you're kind of late to the game and you're like, well, my child is already a teenager and thinks they know more than me, let me just say, I personally don't think it's ever too late to get started. You can still have these conversations, and yeah, you're probably going to get some eye rolls and some, exasperated sighs. Why are you asking me this? Like, you're going to get that kind of reaction sometimes, but don't give up. Just be persistent, and eventually, it all comes down to willpower. And the question is your willpower greater than your child's?
Yeah.
Because if you've got greater willpower, they will eventually open up to you, because they'll realize, oh, you're not asking me because you want to control every aspect of my life. You're asking me because you actually are curious and you actually care about me.
Yeah, for sure. And that is so key, is to be able to get through that obstacle. And once you do, you do have incredibly good lines of communication with your children. That's such good stuff. Emily Chow is our guest here on the Steve Marston Show. We're talking about raising tech savvy kids. Okay, so I know this question comes up. We only have a couple of minutes left, but when you start talking about having kids with phones and having their own video game systems and stuff, what's too young? What's too early to be able to do that?
Yeah.
Is there kind of median age?
All right. Well, I'll tell you what experts say. Experts say that if your child is under the age of 2, yeah, that's way too young. The only thing they should be
Oh
doing
my
with their
gosh. Well, I
screen if
guess
they're
so. I
younger.
hope so.
Well, I mean, that's the easy age. You know, if they're younger than 2, the only thing they should be using a screen for is interacting with FaceTime, like we are right now. I can see
Sure.
you, you can see we're talking to each other, having a conversation. That is considered safer for really little kids. As far as video games and others go, it's just as much about it really comes down how long they're on it and what kind of content they're consuming when they're on it. So, you know, for the younger your child is, the more you want to keep them focused on educational things, and you want to limit that screen time to like 30 minutes to, I think it's an hour is what the current recommendation is. But you want to be, one of the best things you can do though is to sit there with your child and interact with them while they're interacting with the screen to establish that um, it basically establishes the relationship of with you and your child, but it also helps you to just be really proactive if something does pop up that you don't want them to see. Because if you're not sitting
That's
there next to them, you can't stop it.
absolutely. We're going to have to leave it right there. Emily, thank you so much for your insight. This has been fun. And I say this every week when Adam's on, but if you don't, check out pluggedin.com on the regular. If you don't have it bookmarked, you ought to, because it is just a wealth of information for you and your family. Thanks so much, Emily. Have a wonderful rest of your afternoon, okay?
You as well.
All right, back in a minute. Yeah, we are back, and we say we're unique and different because I think we really are. We mix equal parts fun and faith. We take them both seriously, and that's what you're going to find here at this program. Probably not anywhere else. So we are glad that you're a part of it. We would love for you to get interactive with us. You can send us an email, steve@salemmedia.com. We'd love to hear from you, whether it's a question about the scriptures or spiritual matters or just anything off the wall and goofy. We'd love to hear from you. And we get to some of your emails probably tomorrow on the program. Before we move on here, I just got to say how thankful I am for Emily Chow. That was such a fun little interview we just had. If you missed any part of it, of course, it'll be on the podcast when we'll have it uploaded a little bit later tonight. But raising tech savvy kids, definitely a big deal. And I love what she said. The best thing you can do when you're trying to help your kids navigate these waters of technology and all the different things that are out there, some good, some bad, is to have open lines of communication. I just think that's fascinating and so true. And she just did a bang up job. Got to have her back on soon. All right. Gonna check out what's going on otherwise around the world. Check out some headlines. This is pretty cool. I've got a heart for college ministry. I think if you've listened to the program, you know that. It started when I was in college myself, going to a college ministry and being a part of that little culture and community. And it's where I met my wife. And now here we are 30 years later, and we're the leaders of the college ministry. And we're kind of on the other side watching and kind of guiding and shepherding these young adults. And it's just been such a blessing for us to be able to do that. And anytime I see news about revival or news about people starting to really get their faith and put it as a priority in their life, it seems like it's all these college age students, or at least young adults, ages 18 to 25 or 28. And another such one of those has come up. Jay Lowder is an evangelist, and he was on CBN, the 700 Club, the other day, and he was talking about how he was been doing revivals at college campuses, and one at Stephen F. Austin in Nacogdoches, Texas, had an amazing turnout. Thousands and thousands of kids were there, and hundreds came forward to give their life to Christ for the very first time and to be baptized, and just was so encouraging. I wanted you to listen to a little bit of evangelist Jay Lowder about what he's seen on college campuses recently.
And another cool thing that we're seeing is a lot of the believers that are on campus are becoming more evangelistic than what we're accustomed to seeing. Yeah. One of the reasons that we saw so many students that were hungry for the Lord is because their friends were inviting them and encouraging them. And I think part of that is they see some of the disarray and some of the confusion and some of the uncertainty that we're seeing all across the map, nationally and internationally. And they see that, and they want their classmates and friends and fraternity and sorority brothers and sisters to come to know.
So good. I love that. And the fact that it's just them inviting their friends. I mean, it's just the best way to evangelize, just reaching out and inviting someone. That's still the number one method to be able to bring people in to the kingdom, is just to get them to church. Just invite them. That's good stuff. Let's see what else is going on. Oh, yeah, this we failed to mention because I think the news broke as soon as we got off the air on Friday, but I didn't want it to go without mention, and that was that Steve Gaines passed away. Steve was the pastor of Bellevue Baptist Church in Memphis, very much a big deal in the Southern Baptist Convention. He was president there one year. In fact, it was really a very, very contentious for the presidency of the Southern Baptist Convention one year between he and a guy named J.D. Greer. And I don't bring this up because I'm a Southern Baptist. I bring it up because it just shows how you ought to handle conflict. Both of these guys were vying for the presidency, and J.D. Greear says many people remember this in 2016, in which I pulled out so he could win unopposed, is what JD said. He said what most people don't realize is that he first insisted, talking about Steve Gaines, that it would be him to drop out. But it was clear that he was God's choice for that hour, and stepping aside to serve and follow him was one of the easiest decisions I've ever made. May God give us 10,000 more like him. We certainly need more of him this hour. You are loved and you will be missed, brother. That's so good, because a lot of times I think people, kind of divided up of the Christians of, well, I'm following JD and I'm following Steve. And anyway, it all worked out really good. And I'm so thankful that JD Greear said that about Steve Gaines. Again, a guy who was one of the leaders of one of the biggest churches in America. Then he gets the cancer diagnosis, and he goes through that, fights through it, goes to hospice, and now is in the arms of Jesus. So just a wonderful story, knowing that, the grave is not the end. Okay, it's time for our Faith Between Your Ears. This is where we get a Bible verse to learn together as Steve Marston Show kind of family and group. Every week we pick one out and we kind of memorize it together. So with Palm Sunday coming up this week, we wanted to get Zechariah 9, verse 9. And it says, "Rejoice greatly, daughter Zion. Shout, daughter Jerusalem. See, your king comes to you, righteous and victorious, riding on a lowly donkey, on a colt, the foal of a donkey." This was prophesied by Daniel. And Daniel said, from the moment that the clock starts ticking, it'll be 483 years till it's fulfilled. And guess what? Jesus came riding through the gates exactly 483 years from the time Daniel prophesied about it. Zechariah also mentions it here. So let's learn this for our Faith Between Your Ears, so that we have it in our memory bank to rejoice greatly, because your king is coming, righteous and victorious, but riding on a lowly donkey, the colt, the foal of a donkey. Zechariah 9:9. Learn it. We'll have more next. Stay with us.
Here at the Steve Marston Show, we are serious about faith, but we love a good dad joke, too.
This morning, my wife left a note on the fridge. She said, "This is not working. Goodbye." I opened the fridge. Worked just fine.
Oh, that's so good. I love it. Welcome back. The Steve Marston Show continues. We are just about to wrap things up for today. And every day we like to leave you with a smile on your face. And we'll be getting to the best video clip on the internet today. Hang on. We'll get to that here momentarily. Do want to tell you about tomorrow's program. This is going to be fun because, like I say, this Sunday is Palm Sunday. Of course, leads into Holy Week. And then the biggest day of the year on the church calendar, Resurrection Sunday, will be in a couple of Sundays. And we're going to have another guest from Focus on the Family join us. George Stanky will be here. And we're going to talk about how we can be of help and of service to our pastors during this time, because obviously this is their Super Bowl. You know, they prepare and want to make sure that they have the best message. And what can we do to help lighten their load? We're looking forward to talking with him about that coming up tomorrow here on the Steve Marston Show. Can't wait for that. Okay, like I say, we searched the internet high and low, up and down, all around, start to finish, to find the best video on the internet today, and it comes from Michael Goodwin. It ain't wrong, but it ain't right. Let's watch.
So I'm very observant. There's some things I see in society, y'all, that's not wrong, but it just ain't right. You know what I'm saying? It's not against the law. It's not against the Bible. It ain't wrong. It just ain't right. Like a man that wears lip gloss. That ain't wrong. It just ain't right. How you gonna be standing there, your lips shiny, smelling like strawberries? I'm like, hey man, you got some more candy? He be like, nah, dog, that's my lip gloss. Like, yo, lip gloss. It ain't wrong. It just ain't right. What about two grown men riding on a motorcycle together? Your big grown self holding on to another man's waist. That ain't wrong. It just ain't right. Even little boys know better than that. What little boys do? Ride on the handlebars, man. Ride on the handlebars. It ain't wrong. It just ain't right. Y'all, what about a grown man skipping? You ever seen a grown man skip? That ain't wrong. It just ain't right.
That's good stuff. That's Michael Godwin, the bow-tied comedian. Love him. Thanks to Emily Chow. She did such a wonderful job talking about raising tech-savvy kids. If you missed any part of that, check it out in the podcast a little bit later on. Producer Tommy, thank you for another job well done. And thank you for listening and watching. We really appreciate it more than you know. Have a great rest of your afternoon. Encourage someone. Let your light shine. And we will talk to you tomorrow at 3. Bye.